Well, I don't have any juice to ask about.
That's right.
So, let's talk about a different kind of juice. Where have you maybe seen the juice kind of ramp up in terms of the intensity in these last couple days as game week approaches or is here?
Well, I think it's here, and I think that's what we talked about this morning more importantly. I mean, we worked so hard to get to this point. I mean, we've been talking about this point ever since January, right? So the focus this morning was right where we needed it to be. We gave them off day yesterday to kind of prepare for the normal game week, and we'll have our normal walkthrough this afternoon. So it's about making sure Colorado State, we're going to do it so much that it doesn't get tedious, right? How many habits can we create to go out there being successful? Because I always think week one is about you. You know, every week's about you. But even more importantly, I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know if they changed every scheme possible. They could have done it. But at the end of the day, it's about us and what we can control. But I think the excitement's high, and I think as we go through practices, they'll be shorter this week, but they'll even have a little bit more intensity to them, right? We got to make sure that we are flying into week one and we're not oozing into week one. That's an important focus of this week's prep.
Saw the 6 captains get announced earlier this morning. Is that a decision you make, or is that the players?
Well, I think it's a combination. They vote on it, but it's from our leadership council and our seniors. Those are the guys that I think are trained and have earned that right to serve as a captain. You know, so I think what that does is it makes those votes tight, and I think those guys all earned it. I'm really proud of that group. Lincoln was the leading vote getter. I'm just really happy for what he's done for our program, and Connor and Cam. Then obviously RJ and BJ as staples. I believe this is their 3rd year in a row. And then Shaw, he's one of the biggest guys that have transformed in our program in the last 3 years. So love his mentality and love what all that group does bring to our team. But I tell the team, they don't vote for those guys because they score touchdowns or sack guys or really good cover guys. It needs to be about when things aren't going well, we can rely and lean into these guys and they can hold us accountable. So really proud to be working with that group this year.
We noticed based off what you've said over the last couple of weeks, Lawrence, Rashad, and Tanner you're not expecting to have this week. Everyone else available or anyone else that's not going to be there for week one?
Yeah, everyone else is good. I think we really did a good job throughout camp getting up to this point. And now that it's game week, everyone starts coming off that training report. So I love what we've done. Once again, it is a compliment to Coach Anakioni and his staff and how we prepared our guys. We didn't have a single concussion in fall camp, and we had 1 soft tissue injury. I've never seen it before in my life. Right? So, but it's a big compliment to how hard they worked and the plan that we put in place. And it worked. And I asked the guys from day one at camp, work the plan. So the plan was there. It was successful. And now we need to reap the benefits as we go through a tough season.
What's the general scouting report on Colorado State?
Well, I think the biggest thing is it's a new team. You know, and I think through the portal and through recruiting, and I have a ton of respect for Coach Norvell, just a ton of respect for how he builds programs, how he schemes, the way he motivates, and he's going to build a really good program there. You know, the best part, you know, we've been talking about on our end is that we're a completely different team. You know, so I think, yeah, you rely on experiences from last year, but you got to wash that away. I think they're really dominant on their defensive line. You know, I think they were the number 1 sack team in all FBS last year. They sacked us 7 times. He was 42 last year, and he's 8 this year. He's a problem. And then they got another defensive tackle that can play anywhere in the country. So I think they do a good job on both sides of the ball, and I expect them to take a step forward. Now it's what we can control, our effort, our execution, how we go about and attack our mindset, traveling to a tough place to play that I've seen many times before, and they're going to be better offensively. I mean, they got 11 new scholarship offensive linemen. So scouting them is very difficult, you know, so you focus on here's the core of what they do. They will make adjustments that we're not ready and prepared for. Our rules and principles of defense and offense have to hold strong, and we got to be more energized and play harder than them. Okay, that is what week one entails, and excited about our guys getting kicked off here in a few days.
I'm curious about the right side of the offensive line. You guys been rolling with Christie and then Brock there. Is that the plan for week one, or what's that looking like?
We'll see on game day. You know, I think there's a lot of things. Lely's back full-time in practice Tuesday. So we've been working him back into it, and we're excited about him getting back to his right tackle spot. You know, so the difficult challenge as I went through camp was who's the backup right tackle. Christie's been taking that a lot on. Does he slide back inside? Christian moving back to left guard. We still have to make sure that unit is one, but also with the realization that we're probably going to play 7 guys. We haven't done that in my history here, but I think You know, guys are going to be better playing 50 to 60 snaps a game, having a really desired role on the team, and then attacking that role each week. You know, so that's kind of the plan going into it, and we'll be able to adjust on the fly.
And then you guys almost have too many receivers and then not enough spots between Josh and DT and Carlos and Lincoln and whatnot. How do you find the snaps for those guys, and what's kind of the calculus to get them all involved on offense?
Well, I think first of all, you never have enough of any position, especially skill guys that can make plays, and it's a group that I think combined, how many Pac-12 games have they played? Very little, right? So let's see who can put the work and apply it from practice to game day. Practice execution equals game reality. All of them have their certain type of packages, but once again, we're going to play at a fast tempo, right? So we want to roll guys in every 4 and 5 plays and keep guys fresh, and I think that's the way you have really good playmakers. So those guys are really eager to go out there and play the way they're capable of playing, right? So when you have a competitive group like that, it's not one drop and pull you, but hey, you got to perform and you got to play with effort and you got to block and you got to do the dirty and little detailed plays to be successful, to be out there. So that's what I love about that group, and I think they're really anxious to show what they can do.
Coach, you have a little bit of experience, obviously, with this having coached at Wyoming, but I'm just wondering if there's anything to going to Colorado State where there is that higher elevation, 6th in the country, and then obviously you coached at Wyoming was the top in the country, but is there anything you do specifically in camp or in practice this week to prepare for that mentally or physically at all?
Well, I think Howard is going to be hot, and I think the heat adds to it. We practiced on noon, and it was 90 degrees the other day. I think that was important for guys to get through that mock game and realize what it takes. I think there's a hydration level, and I think you have a plan going in early to make sure you're rotating, right? So let's get these guys. Guys, game one, there's tons of nerves, tons of energy, tons of just reserves that you got to get out early, and sometimes those guys, they get that energy dialed up too high, right? So we'll rotate a bunch early, get everyone settled into the game, get certain guys some touches early and that type of stuff. So that's how we'll kind of attack it, make sure we're hydrated and ready to go for a 5 p.m. game.
You mentioned last week kind of the slower start in week one of the last 2 years. I'm just wondering what you need to see specifically from the roster, from the locker room and the energy to be able to say that this game week and the game on Saturday was a success for you guys.
Well, I'll know better on Thursday. I mean, if we attack the next 2 days of practice, I know our guys are attacking things right, and they're going to go out there with the right mentality to get a win. Nothing else matters besides Colorado State. And that'll be our focus. That'll be the way we attack this week, and that'll be the way we attack the game. And we control our execution. I think that's the biggest thing in week one. Pre-snap penalties, post-snap penalties, all the little things that set you behind. Who's going to win the ball battle? I think the takeaway margin early on and in games is huge, and we got to make sure we're getting off to a fast start.
Jake, you've said a couple different times that week one is different because you've been waiting so long to play. Can you just feel it? Can you just see it, the way the guys are there? I mean, not necessarily what they're saying, just their body language, how they're ramping up their intensity. Is it something that is you're actually seeing?
Yeah, I just think you could even see it this morning just in our guys. I think football is such a unique game that you only get 12 games. And you practice football exponentially more than you'll ever play it. To ever waste one of those opportunities is something that we just can't do. And we've been working for this moment for a long time, and we got to be ready to maximize those opportunities. So the energy's high, but it's all about having focused energy. If we're just, dialed in at 10 and we're flying off the walls, we're not going to be execute our job, right? So there's finding that happy medium with a roster that is very new. It was going to be Essa's first game playing at this level. I mean, Josh Kelly, Kyle Williams, a lot of these guys that haven't experienced this. So we got to lean into some of the veterans, and those guys have to make sure that they're a calming influence in a chaotic first game, because there will be adversity in game one.
How different is game week as opposed to spring, as opposed to what you went through in camp, as far as what you're asking your guys to do? Is it more mental than it is physical?
Well, I think now that you get the extra prep, because we started last week, you get kind of the bones of the game plan. And then this week, it's just shorter, faster, even a little bit touch of more aggressive practices, but you're not just out there for long. So I told our guys analytically, the distance needs to be down, but that intensity needs to be high, and we should be hitting our max speeds every day. That's what's going to make us peak for Saturday. So I think it's a culmination of all those things, but still knowing that we need good on good. You just can't sit here and go against scouts and expect to, when that ball is kicked off, be able to start fast. So that's going to be the kind of focus as we go through the week.
Don't know your personal preference, easier to open up at home or on the road? Does it matter?
I'm always a home opener guy. I think it's something about sleeping in your own bed a little bit and kind of going, but there's something magical to taking the team and really going away together, especially if you can get that first win. I think it does jumpstart your season through that experience.
Jake, I know you talked about CSU with the new offensive line, but last season you guys had 7 sacks in that game. Can you build off that at all in this game?
Well, I think it's one of those things that you pick and choose spots to attack. We did a good job stopping the run and getting them behind the chains and allowing ourselves to go out there and pass rush. We'll need to do that again this year. I think you draw a little bit from the experience because I think what you've seen over time is their air raid offense is the air raid offense. So they're going to do very similar things of what they like to do. But I thought as the season went, I think they got more creative in their protection schemes. So week 1, we got to figure out what that looks like, how we want to attack it. And then our 4-down pass rush has to live up to its billing. And I think those guys will. So we'll lean on that experience, but at the end of the day, it's hard to study, hey, this left tackle, here's what he looks like when he's pass protecting, because there's a whole bunch of different guys there.
And then just kind of building off that game last year too, Dayon Henley, really it was game 1, but he really became a star in that game, had 3 sacks. Is this the type of game where, like, hey, this is the season, it's go time, we can see some people emerge, you think?
Absolutely. I think last year was game 3, so we got comfortable with it, but Dayon's also doing some of those same things in the NFL right now. So I don't like comparing a whole lot of things to them, but what you saw in last year's game that led to success was a fast start. Offense, 4 straight touchdowns, defense getting the stops. But then in the second half, I thought they made some really good adjustments that we got to be aware of and prepare for this year. I thought defensive line-wise, they dominated us in the second half last year. They are a movement front. Their movements gave us fits last year when we were trying to run the ball and in protection. So there'll be a variety of different things that we need to play a 60-minute game. It is going to be a ruckus crowd down there. It'll be packed. It'll be late. It'll be a great environment. It'll be one where I know Colorado State's believe they can win the game. And they should, and we should believe that we can win the game. So it's going to be an exciting week of preparation, and excited to get the season kicked off.
Coach, you've
Bless
been
you. You really held that one in. That's okay. That's okay. We won't hold it against you.
You've been getting the team ready for the past month for the upcoming season. Obviously, gears changed this week. Did you know what your message to the team is going to be before you come out of that locker room on Saturday afternoon? I
do, but I'm going to keep that to ourselves. I think it's one thing that we've kind of been building up to really all camp to get to this point. And those guys know that. And I think we had a really good moment. We went through a mock Friday night last Friday to kind of get ready for this game. And sometimes I always like to start mentality with the end in mind. What do you want people to say about you when you're done playing? What do you want people to say about us after the season's over? We need to play that way. And I think it's very powerful when you get guys really thinking about that, communicating that to each other, and then holding each other accountable to it, no matter what happens. And I think the more power and the more connected that we are, that's a lot of my messaging as it goes throughout the season. There's mindset and there's mentality. We got to play with a certain mentality to win games around here, and we can never lose that. So that'll be pretty much the focus of the season.
Who do you think's more excited, the coaching staff or the players at this point?
Oh, man. Got to be the players. It's the players. I think a coaching staff, when you get this much time sometimes, you're watching film from Nevada 2019. You're watching Montana State where Freddie, who's played under us, is now the DC at Colorado State. You just get so much information. You give yourself a little bit of overload instead of making sure that it's clean, it's easy, and our guys can go out there and play fast. In game 1, you cannot hesitate. Right, so we're going to have a bunch of guys that are flying around, knowing their assignments and playing extremely confident.
Coach, you mentioned the plans to play 7 offensive linemen. And just to confirm, is that group S.A. Maake, Connor, Christian, Christy, Falili, and Brock?
Yes. You have Christian in there?
I got Christian.
Okay, yes, all 5 of those guys, yes. Or 7, sorry.
And just kind of finding different spots for them, kind of based on matchups, based on situations, and so on?
Well, I think it's just hard when you're kind of a little bit injured during camp, who fits where and what happens, so we'll see how this week of practice goes with Falili. We expect great things and him to be ready. If not, we'll have a plan for that, so just talking to Coach McGuire, it's been different as we've gone throughout the last few weeks, but we'll be settled and we'll be ready to play.
I asked you about this last week when we spoke, but just wanted to follow up. I noticed Rocky Shields is not listed on the roster, and then wanted to see if Jamori officially got cleared academically for the season.
Yeah, Jamori's back. He's rolling. I think he switched to number 29. We had to leave some special teams issues, so if you see 29 out there, that's Jamori. Proud of him. He got 2 A's in his classes and really showed what he's capable of doing. And I think it was a great learning experience for him and understanding how we are student athletes, and that stuff is very important. Rocky is not going to be with the team. I think he had to leave for a personal matter, and we're going to leave it at that.
You said you were watching film from like 2019, getting ready for this game. How far back do you go when you get ready for games like this?
Well, I think when you study coordinators and you study, what they do against you in certain schemes, we played them when I was at Wyoming, how they protect certain things, certain looks. I was just watching Montana State play South Dakota State in, I think, the 2021 playoffs FCS. So there's a lot of information that you do and you look for, and you're just trying to find that edge. I think that's our job as coaches, is to find the edge and give our players every tool possible to be successful. And there's a lens that you always have to do that with. I'm not a big fan of encyclopedia scouting reports. These guys don't take in that type of information. What's pertinent? What do they need? And how do we need to, as coaches, be able to adjust in the moment? I think that's the best coaches I've ever been around. They know what they need to get to on game day. That's where your merit comes.
Yeah, Fort Collins food recommendations?
Oh, I don't. We've been there a couple of times. My wife would go there mostly to shop, right? So I know that they got a little, I think it's New Glarus beer garden in the end zone, which is phenomenal. But you guys will be working, so you can't partake in that.
So, Coach, I know obviously the focus is on, game planning and football, but I just saw yesterday, like with Colorado, they have a new tradition with, walking out with sunglasses, stuff like that. I'm just wondering if you guys have any, new pre-game traditions for this year, or walkout traditions, or anything that you're going to be incorporating just for energy or anything like that.
No, energy, that's not energy to me. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things where we control our energy, and doesn't matter what any other program does for us. It's just what we need to do to be in our zone, and we don't worry about any of those things. The captains, they have their little talks and chants, and we implemented a captain's meeting every Friday night to hear from the team, because I think it's more powerful than hearing from me. But all those other things will stay in our lane of what we do to be successful.
Coach, I know you've spoken about your time at Wyoming and how close you are with Coach Bull.
Yeah.
Are you guys talking at all before this game, maybe after this game? Because obviously there is the bronze boot rivalry there.
Yeah, we'll always talk after it, especially defensively with those guys, things we liked, things we saw. I think coaching is a sharing of information. Hey, when they checked, what were they saying? Hey, what does the personnel signals and guys look like? I mean, you're always trying to find an edge. So I trust those guys. I think they trust us. So there'll always be conversations to be had after, and they won a close game last year, so you're always looking for an edge anywhere you can get it.